Perfect. All right, so I'll start with the video because that's kind of how I like to introduce KPR and who we are and what we do. It's just quick. It's going to be 20 minutes. I'm just kidding. Just 2 minutes long. It won't take too long to go through, so just hit play on that and make it full screen if you don't mind. Perfect. Idea of how big our board is here. So you want to take that in. Intro to who KPR is and who we are as a board. You want to start that from right in my reach here. Alright, so who am I? My name is Courtney McKenzie. I work HR for the board. I don't know if any of you watch The Office, but I often tell people that my job is basically being Toby in the office. Today with me, as mentioned, is Joanne Graswell. Would you like to introduce yourself, give a quick little overview? How long have you been at KPR for?
So I'm Joanne Graswell, Behavior Support Assistant in the Peterborough area. There are 12 of us in our board supporting our 32,000 students. I've been with the board for 16 years, and the role of BSA is really to be a mentor to the EAs and CYWs who are working frontline with the kids and working side by side when necessary and supporting programs.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so you kind of saw why I work at KPR. That's the video that I just showed you guys. But we're also going to give you an overview of the recruitment and selection process, which is basically all me. I'm the one-man show in recruitment at KPR. So I can go over what the process looks like, where our advertisements are, which I believe other school boards have talked to you about applied education, the application process, what an interview looks like, your references, who they should be, and when we need those references given to us, our ideal candidate, and our tips and tricks for success. And at the very end, Joanne's going to go over what a typical day working at our school board would look like, because I would have no idea. Okay, so advertising for casual EAs would be done on applied education, as mentioned. We have it on our website as well, so if you go on kprschools.ca, there's an employment page, careers, and on the right-hand side there, we have all the jobs that are open. And right now we do have a casual list for our EAs and CYWs open. But the ones for the 2020 graduates, which I believe would be you guys, yep, which would be you, would be posted around January, February. So I would say apply then, because then normally we have our interviews around April, May, and from there we can hopefully get you started if you have your certificate before the end of June, but then we bring you in for your orientation come August, and then you hit the ground running come September. Alright, so applying. Read the ad. There's a lot of info in our actual ad, like attach all your documents, put in a cover letter. In your cover letter, maybe make sure that it says Kawartha Pine Ridge and not Durham District School Board. I personally don't mind, but when we have principals in the room and other people doing the interviews, they're the first ones to circle that. And I get it, you're applying to a bunch of different boards, it's easy to overlook it, but just be mindful of it, just reread it. I also tell people it saves time by putting all your info in a Word document. So if you have your actual, your resume, just drag it, drop it in those little pre-made sections where they ask you questions. And then it saves you the retyping. I know, I get it, we've all been on those employment websites where it says, give us all your information, and at the very end it says, upload your resume, and you're wondering, why did I do that? I get it. Answer the questions clearly and specifically, so it's going to ask you, are you available a minimum of 3 days a week? Let us know if you are. Do you have your CPI training, which I believe is included in your program? No? Well, it's offered here at Fleming, I know that for sure. So please make sure that you get that before you apply to KPR if you're in the process of applying. We require everyone that works with our board as an EA or CYW to have their nonviolent crisis intervention training and make sure it's up to date. And attach, like I mentioned, all necessary documents. So if you have that diploma or you have that certificate, attach it, because once you are hired and if you're hired, it just makes my life a lot easier. You don't have to send it to me, I already have it in your file, it's ready to go. Interviewing. So if you're wondering what an interview process looks like, so you apply on Applied Education, I've screened your resume, I've sent you the invite, which would also be through Applied Education. So you can go in, you'll select your interview time slot, it'll send you an email to confirm that you're coming in for that day. You're nervous, you're walking in, you're going to walk up to the front desk, you're going to let them know that you're here, you're going to sign in, and then they're going to give you an in-basket. And I wrote written portion, because when I first started at KPR, I had no idea what an in-basket was. So that's a written portion. It's just a question that you have to answer in writing. It's nothing too crazy, don't worry about it. It's not asking you astrophysics by any means. It's a quick 30 minutes, you have to do that. You'll also be given your reference check form. So that release form allows us to contact your references. Legally, we can't contact any references you didn't give to us and give us permission to contact. So that's another thing. Make sure you have that on you. It's going to be a panel interview. So normally we have Brandy Kelly sitting, who's one of our managers or the behavior specialist. So she normally sits in those interviews because she knows exactly what she's looking for her EAs and CYWs, and it would either be someone from HR, myself, or a principal. So reference check permission. I can't stress this enough. Please, please, please tell your references that you're giving them as a reference. I can't tell you the amount of times I've called someone or emailed them and they have no idea that I'm reaching out, and it's awkward for me, it's awkward for them, I don't know what to say. So please make sure that they know that we're contacting them. I've had a lot of people come back and say, this person's never told me or asked me to be a reference, please do not contact me for a reference for this person. They very easily get offended, so make sure you're letting them know. Always begin your police check process. You guys have probably already had to do this based on having to work in a school. We do require at the board that you have your vulnerable sectors check done, obviously. I'm sure you guys heard all about this. And it needs to be recent within 6 months. So if you're applying, you get hired, as long as from your hire date, it's within that 6-month period, or that 6-month time frame, you're fine. I always get the question if people should bring portfolios to their interviews. You're more than welcome to. In a day of interviews, we have about 8 to get through, so they're a little bit crammed. You can bring your portfolio, make sure it's something that you can leave with us. It's not something that you only have that one copy to. That way, at the end of the day, when we're going over the interviews, we can kind of fan through it and see what you've done. Yes?
One of the requirements that Fleming has in a lot of their programs is an e-portfolio.
Okay.
And I mean, it has lots of other purposes beyond job application.
Yeah.
Would you accept that emailed or an attachment to the?
I would say attach it to your Applied Education account. A lot of the certificates and stuff you can upload there anyway. And I normally print that off for the interviewers. So before you walk in the room, they have your resume, they have your certificates, they have everything in front of them. And it kind of helps them if they have any extra questions and they want to go off script a little bit. And let me know ahead of time if there's any human rights accommodation. This is near and dear to my HR heart. It really pains me when someone shows up to the board and they need accommodations and I wasn't made aware of it beforehand. I'm more than happy to provide those accommodations as long as I'm made aware of it. I mean, I'll do it if you show up to the board and let me know if you need them. It's just we're scrambling at that point. Yes?
What are some examples of human rights accommodations?
So if you need, say, more time for your in-basket, if we've had that before, we've had people come in with seeing eye dogs, we've had people come in wheelchairs, just little things that, I can help them with. We sometimes have interviews upstairs, and I know that someone in a wheelchair is just a little bit less accessible in terms of having to wait for the elevator. So I will make sure that the actual interview is on the main floor if I'm made aware of that ahead of time. So just things like that. I've had people reach out and say they have learning disabilities and they just need more time for their in-basket or more time to answer the questions. I have gotten better at just printing off the questions as you're sitting in the interview. So you don't get them ahead of time, but you can sit there, or sorry, you do get them ahead of time, and you can look through them while you're doing your in-basket, or if you finished it early, and maybe make a couple notes for yourself. I find that that's very helpful. I don't like to throw people for a loop when they get in their interview, they don't know what's being asked, so that's a bit of an accommodation we give to everybody. So, again with the references, we want a minimum of 2. If you provide 3, 4, 5, that's even better. I require it to be a previous supervisor or someone in the education sector that can speak to you maybe in a classroom. If you've done your placements, that's perfect. If you have the teacher from the classroom that's willing to do that, I'm more than happy to do that. Obviously, it'll be harder to get a principal. They don't always have the time to come to the classroom and see your work, but as long as it's someone that has seen you in that job, I'm more than happy with, or if it's something relatable. Yeah.
What about another EA or CYW in your placement?
We do accept them. If it's your second reference, we do need some kind of supervisor. I'll give you an example for teaching. Sometimes someone's been out of it for a while and they've, say, we've had people do tours for wilderness retreats, and we've had supervisors from that. It doesn't have to be exactly education, as long as it's interrelated and they can speak to you, your interactions with children and whatnot. And like I mentioned before, get permission, please, for the love of God, get permission. So, our ideal candidate, obviously this isn't, it's just an example, okay? I've had this question before, it's just an example of a man coming in for a job interview. So we look for people that are collaborative at KPR. You're in a classroom, you're working with the teachers, you're working with ECEs, you're working with CYWs. We're looking for people who are willing to help. We're also looking for lifelong learners. Just because you're out of school doesn't mean that you shouldn't continue your education, continue your learning. We strive for that in our teachers that we hire, and we strive for that in basically any staff that we hire. Embracing change. So there's been a lot of changes recently, as you're aware. We really require people that are able to think on their feet and go with the flow. I know change is always hard, it's never easy. People get in a routine, they get used to how things are. But we are in a society that's ever changing, so I like to put that in there. Demonstrates commitment and passion. So in your interview, if you come in, you can have all the right answers, you can give us everything. If we don't see that you're passionate about this and you're committed and you love students, you might not get that job. And we've had those interviews where, we're both looking at each other saying, they said all the right stuff, I'm not seeing it. So if you're coming in and you've done work with children, be passionate about it, talk about it, make sure that passion is shown. We're not looking for people that are just theoretical and answering all the questions. We really want people that will help our students at the end of the day.
Can I interrupt again?
Yes, go ahead.
So, what do you look for?
What do we look for? A lot of times if you have your portfolio, if you put together programs.
But like passion-wise, like what are the signs of passion?
Just when people speak, I think, we're able to tell that they love their job, that they love what they're doing. We had one CYW, I know it's a little bit, you guys are EAs, but still very, I think that it's a good example. He came in and he was working with a student that was struggling in the classroom, and he found out that he really loved comic books. And this CYW was an artist, and he would help draw out comic books to help this kid learn. That's just something that we were blown away by. I mean, he went above and beyond. Give us examples of times where you went above and beyond in your job and you didn't just stick to the norm. I think that would be a good thing to bring in. I think think about it before you go into your interview. You obviously have those questions in front of you. Maybe jot down some notes of things that you want to mention. You're more than allowed to look at your notes. We're not that strict. And no one in that interview is there to see you fail. I like to say that too. We want you to be successful. So
in terms of that,
yeah.
So I've spent my first month of school transitioning kindergartens who have struggles into placements in their classrooms. And just recently, I had the opportunity to support this little person who is on autism spectrum, nonverbal, some violent outbursts when communication fails him. And I had the opportunity to watch 2 different EAs interact with him. And when the principal said to me, which one of these 2 people should I place with this student? I said, you need to place so-and-so because there were so many points when she looked like she was truly enjoying herself. Because if you're not enjoying yourself when you're involved in those intense situations, it's tough, right? And so, and that's what happened, right? Because I was watching through a window, I couldn't hear anything, but I could see it on her face when he was participating and interacting with her, and she was like interacting back, and she was excited to be there. She was a regular employee in the building. It was a matter of us shuffling staff around to accommodate this, and that was, so it's just even that facial piece of, I'm really happy to be here, and
I think that's perfect. Kids will pick up on it. They know that you don't want to be there if you don't want to be there. So I think it's very important to, have that energy when you're coming into the classroom, just as much as if you're coming into the interview, that you want to be there, you want that job, you know who KPR is and what we stand for. I know that we show the video, inclusivity, diversity. If you can speak to that in your interview as well, I think that's always good. Have you done any volunteer work that you're proud of? You've worked with children, you've worked with, any kind of volunteer work, I think is worth bringing up as well, because we understand you're going to be right out of school and you might not have all that work experience. So, tips and tricks, applications, edit, review, edit, spell check, edit again. I cannot stress this enough. Like I mentioned earlier, make sure it says KPR, it doesn't say Durham District School Board, it doesn't say PBNC. Give your references something to talk about. I think that when you're asking someone to be a reference for you, it's very valuable sometimes to remind them of things that you've done. Say you put together a program in a classroom, or you helped put together a program, you worked with the CYW, there was a child in the classroom that was struggling that you helped. I think that you should bring that up to them, because sometimes they have so many people coming in and out of the classroom that they forget some of the things that maybe stick out in your mind and that you remember. And just by jogging their memory a little bit, they're able to speak to that when I call or when I email. Do they know you? That's number one. Do they know who you are? I've emailed people before and they've asked me, can you remind me who this is? And just let them know that you're going to contact me and that they know who you are. Be present and visible, and everything is visible. I like to stress this, making your placement. Make sure that you're aware that all eyes are on you, even if you feel like they're not. Our schools are very much tight-knit communities. When you're there for your placement, or in any school, or in any job really, and you're doing a placement or you're just there as casual, everyone is watching what you're doing. If you're good at your job, the principal's going to know about it, because that teacher's going to go speak to the principal and say, this person's amazing, we have to get them. And that principal is emailing us asking, hey, I have an open spot right now for an EA, this is the person that I want applying for, this is the person I want in that job. So don't think that because you're not getting praise every day, or people are noticing. I do hope that you're getting praised if you're doing good work, but don't be aware that just because you're not doesn't mean you're doing a bad job. So I would say that. More tips and tricks, do your homework and research before the interview. I've been in some really uncomfortable interviews where I asked someone, so tell me what you know about KPR, and this is a true story, gotten a very uncomfortable for both of us. So make sure you've done your research, you went on our website. I remember I've been with the board for 1.5 years. Before I went into that interview, I researched everything about KPR. I wanted to know exactly who they were, what they stood for. I knew about their involvement in the Indigenous community. I knew about their mental health initiatives. I really wanted to make sure that I was aware of everything going on. So, if you can speak to your passion as an EA or a CYW or whatever job you're applying to, even outside of this, make sure you know about the company you're going to work for. Make sure that your values align with ours. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing. You can speak to your love of kids, great. If you can speak to your commitment to diversity and inclusion, and you're a lifelong learner, if you're taking classes on the side, I would say mention it. Go on our website, that's where all our information is. Be courteous throughout the process. So as I mentioned before, I am the only recruiter for the board. So I get a lot of emails, and I know that you're excited and you want to know how your interview went. I will let you know regardless. Normally I ask for about a 2-week time frame just to get back to everyone. If I don't hear back from a reference, I'll normally reach out to you and let you know which reference I haven't heard back from. You can always give me another reference to contact at that time, but please respect the process. I know you're excited. I get emails 2 days after an interview and I haven't even gotten the paperwork back yet, so please be respectful. I'm not saying that to think that I'm high and mighty by any means, I just mean I just got a lot of emails. Okay, now you're hired. You work for KPR, you've sent in all your paperwork, everything's good. We require you to be available to work a minimum of 3 days a week. I like to say that that's on average because I understand that that's not possible every single week, but we do run reports at KPR to make sure that our staff is committed to us. So if you're working for another board and that's not possible, I always want to say, work for the board where you want to plant your roots. We have unfilled jobs every single day. If you want to work, you're more than able to work. And the more you're working, the more you're meeting those principals, you're interacting with our staff, and the more likely you are to get those LTAs and those permanent jobs afterwards. People know you. Travel area within KPR. So in the video earlier, I kind of showed you, there's a big map. We don't require you to travel the entire length of the board. I understand, I'm in Bowmanville, I wouldn't be traveling all the way to Apsley by any means, 2 hours away to get to work. You are able to select the area that you want to work in. Obviously, the more schools you pick, the more areas you're choosing, the more work you're more likely to get. But you can do a minimum of 10 if that's something that you're into. If you work in, say, if you live in Bowmanville, I tell everyone, pick those Orono schools, pick the schools in Port Hope, pick Coburg. It's not that hard to get to. I drive to Peterborough every day, it's not even that bad, but I understand that sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. But like I said, the more schools you select, the more jobs you're going to get. And our starting hourly rate is $21.91 an hour. Let it throw that in there. All right, and I will throw it over to Joanne.
So I have to ask, how many of you are in placement in a school at this point? Wow,
Yeah.
awesome. So you probably already know what to expect. So just a couple of points off of what Courtney was saying. When I came to the board, I didn't know any of the schools. I was very privileged to land into a long-term occasional or a long-term assignment, LTA, LTO, right off the hop. But what I tell people is that my next part of my job with the board, I was what's referred to as an itinerant. And I traveled to 42 different schools. And people said, why would you do that? And I said, because at the end of the day, I know this is a one-year job, and I had 42 principal experiences. So I was then able to know who I would work for and who I would not. And that helped me to determine where I was going to work. Bottom line is that personalities enter into it. I was so thrilled the other day when we were looking to interview for a position at one of the schools that I support, and the principal said, I really need to be there because, you know, with my personality, not everybody gets along with me. Bonus, thank you for reflecting on that. We've all known that for years. But it was awesome, like, because there are going to be good and bad. You are going to get noticed. My role, as I said, is a mentor. So if you're in a school placement and you can certainly ask if the BSA is in, can I meet them? There are 12 of us board-wide, each of us supporting generally an assigned school grouping, which is the high school and all the feeder schools that go with it. So I support Crestwood area schools, and so I have the 6 feeders that go into Crestwood, feeders being the elementary schools that graduate into that high school. And so we're pretty around, right? One of the things that I would suggest that as you're in your placement, thinking about being recruited, make sure that you understand and know what our safety plans look like, how to read them. You should receive those as soon as you come into a school building and once you're hired. But as a placement student, access that. We have positive behavior plans. You're probably working side by side with a CYW in many cases. If not, you are more than welcome. We will come and spend some time with you. I am coming to Peterborough this year for the first time. I've been in Northumberland for the last 11 years as a behavior support assistant, and so that was one of the things we did. I had good connections with all my CYWs. When they had a placement student, I would come in and spend a couple of hours and just go over the things that we really need you to understand. Safety plans, that's what we do, right? If we think, truthfully, because I'm pretty transparent, if you think you're coming to the KPR to teach children to read, you are in the wrong course. You need to be a teacher. Because what we do is we look after health students, we look after the medically fragile children, we look after safety and behavior kids. That's what allocation is for. When, at the end of every year, we all meet as the behavior services team, we look at each and every school and we identify the children that are going to require that support. And those children have to meet a criteria, and that criteria is solely based on safety or on health. That's not to say that you don't get to do those other things, but if you read the media, you know that it is not always the safest job. There are kids that are going to hit you, there are kids that are going to spit on you, there are going to be great experiences. I've just been 6 days with a kindergarten who absolutely has touched my heart, despite the fact that she kicked the crap out of me every day, but she still touched my heart. So that's where the passion comes in, that's where the I love kids despite this. Do I want you to be safe? Absolutely. So that's the other piece, that the behavior support assistants are the nonviolent crisis intervention facilitators. So we refresh people every year. Every person in our ward who is working frontline must be refreshed every single year for their CPI. We will come and if people get hurt, we come, we debrief, we figure out what happened, and we help you to be safe. Do not be afraid to speak up. We're here to help. So, accepting work, I gotta tell you, I don't know how that works. I think
I can speak to that.
you speak to that, because I don't know, because I've been here.
Yeah, so it's accepting work.
It's changed.
Once you're hired, like I mentioned, we have your AT profile. You can select the schools that you want to work for, and you can mark the days that you're available for work. On those days, the system will call out. I think it calls out until 10 p.m. at night and starts again at 6 a.m. You can get text messages, you can get emails. If you don't get a phone call, you can log on to Applied Education and see what jobs are available. So maybe there's a school that you haven't selected, but there's an open job, you have the time, you want to get there, you can pick up that job as well. So you've accepted the job, you're showing up to the school, hopefully 15 minutes early, because if there is a safety plan, obviously you're going to want to look over that and make sure that you're aware of it with the teacher, and you can speak to maybe what that looks like from there.
So, a couple of things to remember. The corner of every foundation in a school is the secretary. That's where you got to start, because she's the first person you're going to see, and she is the direct link to the principal, so beware. That's the same as if you're dropping off a resume at the board office. Remember that that receptionist is the first person who you meet, and those first impressions are important. I'm going to segue over for a second. My ex-husband was the human resource manager at Home Depot, and the people at the customer service desk would receive all of the applications, and they would write this on the top if they weren't impressed. You know what that meant? One line, we don't want these people. Remember that it's the first impression is important. Then our secretaries are in.
That's very important, especially when you're coming in for your interview. I've come back out and picked up the paperwork that's left at the desk, and the secretary will always say, this person was amazing, they're so nice, they're so friendly, like how did they do their interview? They're actually genuinely curious to know how you did. So I think that that's a very good point as well.
Reporting to the school, so again, you see the secretary, you will know the name of the person that you were replacing. So we'll use my name for an example. Go in and you say, hi, I'm a supply, I'm here to replace Joe Grasswell for the day, can you direct me in the right direction, right? So what she will do is she will first off, because you are coming into the school, you should have access to the front page of every single safety plan in the building. It could be 10, 20. It's just a quick synopsis. Inside, what they will do is they will find the mailbox for Joe Grasswell. And inside Joe Grasswell's mailbox, there will be a file. And the file will have what you do for the day. There are times that, because we're going into safety situations, you might have to find the protective equipment that you need. You might need shin guards, you might need arm guards, you might need spit shields, smocks, fair. That stuff, though, will usually, the EA or the EA that you're covering for, will usually or should always put these pieces into their job description. And there's a section in the ATB for them to put what the expectations are. Please remember that if she says, I start at 8:15, because of the way our government cuts have happened, many of our EAs and CYWs start at the bell. So 8:15 means the kids are already on your doorstep. That's why being there at 8 would really be helpful, even though you don't start work till 8:15, because when are you going to read up about, Johnny, who you're coming to support today? My personal thing with EAs and CYWs that I support in this school is I really want them to have a full package for their supply notes. That is not always happening, and so that's my thing of the year is my new schools, so I'm gonna help them to make good supply notes. But in some cases, the principal will reassign you to something else. So Joe Grasswell's put in for the case, or for the supply. However, my job is with this student who really requires a known person, somebody who they are familiar with. So now, Courtney is gonna come and work in my position, and you're gonna go and work in Courtney's position. Do not think that it has anything to do with your skill set or our concerns, that we're concerned at all about the way you're gonna handle yourself. It's really about the kids. And at the end of the day, it's always about our kids. You should ask where the bathroom is, because seriously, it's a problem. Because they're sometimes unmarked as a staff washroom. And I went into a school one day, and as you notice, not 20 anymore, so my bladder doesn't always cooperate with me. And I was going into a school that I'd never been in before, and I had just driven an hour to get there, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I found the girls' washroom, and I said, I don't care. So I went in. And this little kindergarten kid, sitting in this little kindergarten, whoosh, right underneath, and looked like she's right there in my face. And I go, hello? And she said, Yady, this is the girls' bathroom, and the Yadies do not pee in here. And I go, well, how about you go back out there, where you came from, and we'll wash our hands, and then you can show me where the ladies go to the bathroom. Okay. And so she waited for me, and she walked me down the hall. So sometimes it'll say staff washroom, but sometimes it's not as easy to find. And there will be, there are schools more and more who are putting on their kids' doors, not because of me. This is for students only. Go find the adult washroom. And what to expect. The teacher is your partner. She or he will hopefully have lots of great things to be able to share with you. I have always seen, when I've worked school-based, as I refer to it, I was in a partnership with those people. And as a casual, you are in a really difficult place. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that one, because these kids are totally unknown to you. So you really need to depend on the teacher to help. But the last thing a teacher wants is you sitting on that chair back there, watching. Right? If your student, the student that's identified, is working along pretty good, that teacher wants you to be wandering around and checking out. Please do not sit on the back with your phone. Seen it more than once.
Yeah, complaints at HR.
That's just not acceptable, right? It is a constant motion job. If you're not dealing with I'm going to pick on you. If you're sitting on your, buddy's sitting on his computer, or she's sitting on her computer, great job, and you're wandering around. Can I help you? What do you need, right? Because you are an educational assistant. You are not a single child's person. There are some that you will sit side by side and you will leave their side. You also won't be looking at your phone then, because you never know. You got to keep your eyes open, right? Never know what might happen. Expect that you will have yard duty, so make sure you have clothes appropriate for the weather. I carry in my car my snow pants, my coat, and boots in my car all the time, because although my job doesn't necessarily have me as a on-the-schedule person, sometimes you have to hit the ground running. Sometimes we go in and, oh, we're 4 EAs short today. Okay, I'm on the schedule.
This ties into being collaborative.
That's right. So to do it. Please make sure, I know that we are all squeaking out the last few days of summer, but please make sure that when you're going into a school that you have closed toes, that you have appropriate footwear. High heels, not working. It's a constant moving job. You don't know that you're not going to be hitting it at full pace after a kid who's whipping across the field, and you're not doing that in 4-inch spikes.
I work HR, so it's fine.
Yes. And I wear flats.
I'm really
But that's the reality. It's kind of funny when my team joins together to have a team meeting, we all dress like that, because we don't get to do it any other time. So those are important things, right? Make sure your toes are closed. Make sure you wear closed toe shoes. You're recording that too.
He'll edit it.
It's not my nose fixed and my mouth won't work. And appropriate weather gear, right? Do we go out in the rain? Yeah, sometimes. It's a principal call. Sometimes you'll say it is too darn cold to be out there, but there is actually, go figure, there's actually a line, like an actual temperature line that says, if it is below this, the kids can't go out. But even an eighth of a degree above that, boom, you're outside, right? So find out about those things. If you have downtime, which doesn't usually happen if you're a supply, but you might, right? Maybe the kid that you're there to support actually incidentally wasn't there today, right? That's when you go to your principal and you say, so, I'm here as a supply and kid's not here, or left at noon or whatever. What do you want me to do? Right? Show the initiative, because those are the people who get the jobs.
Yeah. All right, and that's pretty much it for us.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want us to do the question portion now, or, yeah.
Okay.
Is there any questions, is there anything that maybe you were hoping that I would speak about today, or that Joanne would speak to, that we haven't, that are lingering? Yeah.
What all did you have to do for the BSA?
To be a BSA? Well, a BSA has CYW qualifications and minimally 3 to 5 years of frontline work. And a whole host of other situations, right? Frankly, autism is where it's at. FASD is high in our board. I'm not sure about other places. So any other information that you can get or any other courses you can take about that, that's really important. But yeah, it is required by a CYW with 3 to 5 years experience. So, yes.
What is CIW?
Oh, CYW, Child and Youth Worker.
Okay, so,
Okay. So in our board, we have basically 3 levels of support staff based on what their qualifications are. So we have PCA, which is Personal Care Assistant. Is it assistant? Yeah, Personal Care Assistant. And they look after the medical kids. So those people have PSW training. We have educational assistants, which work in the school or in classrooms with kids. Child and youth workers also work in classrooms with kids and are often shared around among many kids, but they are the ones who help set up some programs. They help, they might go in and do a lesson on self-regulation type program in a classroom as a professional, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, we all do yard duty and we all look after kids. And everybody wipes bums. Let's just let that out there. Toileting is on everybody's job description, including mine. So that's the other thing. On the gloves and be prepared, because anything can happen. Anything can happen Thursday. Anything else? Yeah.
The process from going from supply to an LTO to full-time contract,
Yeah.
how does it work and how long does it take typically?
It's all dependent. I've seen people get hired and get a job within a month in an LTA. I've seen people get permanent right away. It's really dependent on the jobs that we have available. I mean, we have the retirements coming up. There's always some openings there. We have a lot of maternity leaves. That opens some time up. But yeah, normally I would say it can take about a year to get an LTA. I mean, we have a lot of people that are really lucky that get them within their first month, the first 2 months. But I don't ever want to make that promise because it's really dependent on, are you doing your job properly? Are you getting people saying positive things about you in that school? Those are the people that are going to get those jobs faster. And we do get complaints from EAs that maybe have been with our board for a while and other people are getting permanent over them. Oftentimes there's reasons for that.
I think the other thing is that what Courtney said about, selecting your area, and you're right, you live in Bowmanville, you're probably not going to include Apsley on your area. However, the more schools you're in, the more opportunity you have to meet principals. And at the end of the day, that's where the long-term occasional positions happen. Yeah. They get told, part of my role is to go in and assess the situation in terms of looking at the schedule, seeing where I can squeak some time out of people's day to support said student. But at the end of the day, they don't have enough. We need another person, and that person's put in as a long-term occasional or long-term assignment.
Long-term assignment, yeah.
They change it. See, I've been around too long. And the principal gets to choose. The principal chooses that person. So if you've been in their school and they go, oh yeah, do you remember Courtney? That's the one I want.
It happens all
All
the
the
time.
Yes.
We always have an opening, and the principal is the first thing that they want to know is, this candidate was here this day, they were amazing, are they still on that list? I want them in this LTA.
Yeah.
It happens more than, yes.
And it starts even on placement, because we
Yes.
had somebody last year in Campbellford, I think,
Yeah.
who got hired.
Right away.
She was still working in this program, and we gave her an early exit so she could be hired.
Yeah, we've had that happen quite a bit. We've told our principals as well, so if you're in a KPR school and you're doing your placement, our principals are made aware that they can interview you on the spot. We're totally okay with that in HR, because it takes a load off of us, and they know you, they've seen you interact with students. I always get paperwork from interviews that have happened at the school, and before you graduate, you're on that casual list, and if there's an opening at that school and that principal decided to interview you, it's because they think you're good at your job, and you're more likely to get that LTA there.
And from our point of view at Fleming, we consult with Patty Thompson
Yeah.
and John McKinnon to make sure that, the assessment of the placement is good enough that we're gonna let you leave early.
Yeah.
But don't say I can't until I graduate, no, not necessarily.
Yeah.
We can make that happen.
Yeah, I've reached out to Patty a few times and said, hey, I have this person, they're great, we just need proof on a transcript that they've finished their courses, that's literally all we need.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we need, obviously, the certificate, but if you're really good and that principal wants you in there, you've completed all your other courses, there have been exceptions made, for sure. And I'm normally the one who has to push those through. All right, anything else? Good. Yes,
Sorry, I keep asking all the
gentleman in the
questions.
back.
Job action, what's going on in KPR
Job action?
with EAs and the QP union?
Oh. Yeah, we're kind of left in the dark as well, I feel like. We're,
So
obviously the higher ups in HR, I think there's a lot of rumbling, but we don't, like me as a recruiter, I don't really know what's happening. I think I know as much as the general public. I wish I could speak to it more, but I don't
Yeah,
really.
okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Thought you might have an inside track.
no, unfortunately we don't. They're very hush-hush about what they're gonna be doing.
So anything that's been in the newspaper is.
Yeah, is what we're privy to
That's
as
all I
well.
know. Okay.
Yeah, it's been some trying times, but yeah, we'll get through. Yeah.
One of the challenges for the KPR is that we have 3 different unions. So,
Yeah.
and probably in a lot of cases. So we have QP, which is the support staff, it includes secretaries, custodians, MPs, CYWs a lot, and the paraprofessionals, or the other professionals like speech and language. And then we have the Elementary Teachers Federation, and we have the Secondary School Teachers Federation. So all 3 are negotiating at the same time. So even though one might be doing really well at their negotiations, somebody else might not, and all of it affects kids at the end of the day.
I'm just happy I'm not in those negotiations personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. That's all we have for you.
Well, thank you.
No, no.